Non-conformance, site observation, work inspection, material inspection, MIR, WIR, NCR. I'm sure you have heard some of it or all of it. Probably experienced it as well on site. These are the documents that are used for quality control on site. Now, how they are used, why they are used, when they should be used, how to recover from it, how to solve the problems. Let us discuss all of that. Welcome to the Walker's Facade. Let's get into it. We have discussed in one of our previous videos how important it is to have proper quality control on site and in factory, right? Today, these points we will discuss about the quality control on site. What are the main processes that we should follow and how these are followed. Let's start with material inspection request. That's the first thing that we do when a material arrives on site for work, for installation. So, a material inspection request is a document that a contractor issues to the client or consultant to get the material checked and certified that it is satisfactory as per the project specifications or site requirements, right? A material inspection request, an MIR, is issued for whatever material. Technically or theoretically, it should be issued for whatever material that is arriving on site, that is delivered to site. Starting from the actual material that is to be installed, like whatever, for a curtain wall, be it glass, aluminium, accessories, for cladding, be it stone, be it the framing, the anchor bolts, the screws, the EPDM, the waterproofing, rock wool, whatever material that is arriving on site, all that material should be recorded with an MIR. How it helps is when a contractor issues an MIR, the client or the client's representative, they come and inspect the material based on whatever the project specifications are or whatever the material sample approval that they have given or the contractor has obtained. Now, what is a sample approval or what is a material approval? See, just like shop drawings, before you start the project, you have to, for a curtain wall, for example, he has to check the structural calculations, the wind load calculations, thermal calculations, then aesthetic requirements. All these requirements are checked, and then the client or the client's representative has to check the material and he gives an approval to the contractor that yes, this is the perfect specification that we require and you may please purchase and bring this material to our site for installation. That is basically a sample approval or material approval. So when a material comes to site during an MIR, the consultant checks the material and verifies it with this material approval that you have obtained, that a contractor has obtained. If they both match, if they both satisfy each other, then the material is approved. An MIR should be issued for all the material that is being delivered to site, be it the anchor bolts, be it the accessories, rock wool, EPDM. This exercise must be carried out on site as soon as the material arrives on site, is delivered on site. Of course, it should be checked by the contractor first. A contractor has to check the material by himself, the contractor's QC representative or their site representatives. They need to check the material and they have to first ensure that the material doesn't have any damages. It's satisfied or it complies with the project specification and material approval and all that. Color, finish, everything looks fine. This need to be confirmed by the contractor themselves, and then an MIR is issued to the client for their inspection and approval. So in an MIR, what all document do we attach? So on an MIR, you should have MTC, that is mill test certificate. Then they should have the copy of material approval, material or sample approval. They should have the relevant test reports. For example, if it's a glass, if it's a tempered glass, it should have heat soak test, right? It should have the test report for sealant, and it should have the dimension inspection report by the internal QC from the factory. That's basically the factory check report. Factory inspection report should be attached. Delivery note should be there. Invoice should be there. All these documents must be attached with the MIR for the consultant to check, and he will verify each and every document of these with each other and verify that the document number and project name, project specifications, the requirement, all of them match with the material approval. And then the consultant gives it a approved status. So that approval makes sure the material is as per the project specification and can be used on site without any issues, right? So that was the MIR. Next comes WIR. Now, what is a WIR? It's a work inspection request. Work inspection request is a document to offer the consultant or the client to check the work that has been done by the contractor on site. So the work done on site should comply with the project specification, material submittal, shop drawing, and etc. Now, the requirement of WIR varies with the type of work that is being carried out. A stone cladding installation will have, say, a grid that is fixed onto the concrete, and then the runners on top of it, and then the stone installed on top of it. Before that, there could be thermal insulation installed here. There could be waterproofing on top of it, and maybe then you fix the stone on top of it. So in this example, we have a certain stages, right? We have framing, that is first, then we have thermal insulation, then we have waterproofing, then we have runners, then we have the stone, right? We have all this material. So there should be ideally 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 work inspection and then a final inspection to check everything. So 6 inspection requests, 6 WIRs. Now, how it's followed is, first of all of these materials, as I said before, must be approved in an MIR. Like an MIR should have been issued for each of these materials separately or combined depending on the requirement, but it should be approved. It should have been approved before. Now, in this case, once the framing is completed, the contractor issues a WIR to the client. The client inspects the framing works, its dimensions, the verticality, the horizontal line and level, anchor bolt fixation, bimetallic corrosion separations, like whatever is given in the shop drawings and structural calculations. The consultant comes, visits the site, he checks everything. Once it is acceptable as per the specification, he gives an approval for it. Now, we said the framing has to be inspected and there should be 6 WIRs, right? Why and how the 6 WIRs are determined? It is determined by ITP. ITP is the inspection and test plan. We will not discuss about the tests in this video, but we will discuss about the inspection plan. So in the ITP, looking at the procedure of installation, the sequence of installation that is given in the method statement, the consultant, the contractor, and the client all together sits and decides on what all stages the inspection has to be carried out. So in this example, we have worked out 6 WIRs. 6 WIRs, considering if this is a very large project for each area, it is going to be too much of paperwork. So the consultant and contractor may agree on certain combination of inspections. For example, the rock wool and waterproofing may be inspected together, or the bracket and runner can be inspected together. Something can be worked out to reduce the paperwork. But we will go through with the whole paperwork for this one. Now, second inspection will be the thermal insulation. Once the bracketing and framing is done, rock wool is installed, thermal insulation is installed. Thermal insulation is then offered for inspection. Same procedure follows. Consultant comes and inspects the rock wool. If the rock wool thickness is perfect, if the installation is proper, if the required pins are properly installed, there are no voids in the rock wool, everything is checked, satisfied, approved. Next comes the waterproofing. Waterproofing membrane or waterproofing sheet or whatever it is as per the shop drawing is applied on top of it. WIR is submitted, consultant inspects, approves. Then the runner is fixed, same procedure follows. Then the stone is fixed, same procedure follows. Another very important factor to check is, for example, if in this case, say the waterproofing was failed, waterproofing inspection was rejected for some reason, the contractor will not be allowed to go ahead with the stone installation. Maybe he might be allowed to install the runners, but it all depends on the shop drawing. The point is to close an installation by something else, that installation must be inspected and approved by the consultant or by the client. If the work is not approved and you apply something on top of it, for example, if the rock wool was not approved and you applied waterproofing on top of it, the rock wool is already covered. Tomorrow, when you resubmit the WIR for rock wool that was rejected for some work comments, you will not be able to inspect the rock wool because it is already covered with the waterproofing. In this case, the waterproofing will not be approved since the preceding WIR is rejected. So this is a stage-by-stage inspection, or this is a stage-by-stage procedure. You have to have all the stages properly covered, closed, to get to the final stage. Once everything is approved, the final stage inspection comes up. Final inspection usually is proper cleaning, minor damages, everything is checked at the time of final inspection. And the contractor has to make sure that all the preceding WIRs are cleared, all the work is properly cleaned, everything minor detail is properly checked, and then the final stage inspection is offered. And once that is approved, the work is completed. That's when the handover certificate is given to the contractor by the client, which clears the contractor from his responsibilities of work on site. Of course, he will be under a liability period in which if there comes any damages, or if any damages that were missed out before are observed, especially with movable stuff like doors and handles and accessories and all that, that will be the contractor's responsibility for a certain period of time, which is pre-agreed during the project time. 2 years, 5 years, 1 year, 6 months, whatever is the liability period. But this final stage inspection, WIR approval, gives the contractor the authority to claim the money for the work that he has completed. For WIR, we need to ensure that the previous documents are all cleared. MIR is cleared. Why didn't the color come up? Okay. MIR is cleared. Shop drawings. Shop drawings are cleared. Calculations are cleared. Method statement are approved. All of these things has to be approved for the WIR to get approved. These are the procedures. Additionally, there will be test reports required, maybe field test or on-site test. For example, this waterproofing may require a water hose test. The anchor bolt may require pull-out test. Some of the fixation may require some kind of third-party test. So all this, maybe there was site welding carried out that requires weld test. Maybe there was coating carried out on site that requires coating test. So there could be all these test procedures which is required to clear out the WIR. These were the inspection procedures, WIR and MIR on project. Now comes the bigger problem for the contractors, that is NCR and SOR. That's Non-Conformance Report and Site Observation Report. NCR, Non-Conformance Report. What is a non-conformance? Non-conformance is basically a non-compliance or not complying with the project specification or material submittal or some kind of document that was pre-approved, but on site the material or the work that has been carried out is entirely different or very different from the approved system. For an example, suppose the contractor was to use M16 stainless steel expansion anchor by Hilti within an embedment depth of say 70 mm on the brackets, but the contractor used a GI anchor from say a local supplier that was embedded say 30 mm and the diameter was just 8 mm or 10 mm. So that's a complete non-conformance from the project specification. In that case, the client or the consultant has the right to issue a non-conformance report to the contractor saying that his work does not satisfy the project specification, does not suffice with the material approval that was given to the contractor. So the NCR records the non-conformance that has happened on site, and when that issue is a major issue and which will take extra money, time and effort to resolve. In that case, a non-conformance report is issued to the contractor. A site observation report in comparison is much lighter. It is usually considered as a preventive measure. For example, in our previous case, say the contractor was observed to be using one anchor on one of the brackets, one or two anchors or one or two of the brackets, then the consultant may issue a site observation saying that he observed that the contractor was seen using this anchor on a couple of brackets. The contractor may have used it only for a temporary holding of the bracket in position. Maybe he didn't have the M16 anchors delivered to site for the time being, and he was using an M8 anchor with a smaller hole just to hold the bracket in position for his setting out or for his work procedures. Then it can be issued as a site observation. A site observation reports such an incident on site, and this gives a leverage to the consultant or the client in case if the contractor proceeds using this material at a later stage. Or it could also help bring out this point to the contractor's notice. Maybe one of their engineers or the procurement team did some mistake and ordered a wrong anchor, and by issuance of an SOR, the contractor is informed that this is not the anchor that they are supposed to use. If they have done some mistake, please get that rectified, please get the correct anchors ordered and use it on site. That prevents a major issue to happen. So SOR is usually a preventive measure, and NCR is usually a rectification procedure, a rectification requirement. So site observations should be carried out actively on site by the client, by the consultant, and even by the contractor's QC representatives themselves. See, we are all humans, right? Be it the procurement engineer, be it the project engineer, be it the storekeeper, and human beings are flawed. There could be mistakes, right? So the site observation should not be taken in a negative way by the contractor, and it should not be used as a negative weapon by the consultant or the client as well. It is a procedure to prevent any non-compliance occurring in the future, right? So that should be taken in a positive way. Once the NCR or SOR is issued, the contractor has to respond to the SOR or NCR with his corrective action proposal. That we will either in case of SOR, he can respond to the SOR saying that, yeah, this was a temporary use material. Our 16 mm anchors are on the way, and once it arrives, we will make the bigger hole and we will fix the 16 mm anchor by removing this 8 mm anchor, and the problem will be resolved. And in case of our previous NCR, the contractor may have to respond in supporting the mishap that occurred on site by, say, giving a supporting calculation that confirms that that particular 8 mm anchor is fine for the use in this particular installation, which is difficult since the obviously previous calculation is approved for 16 mm anchors. How 8 mm will not work, but he can say we can add one more 8 mm or two more 8 mm anchors or 16 mm anchors. We can increase the bracket size, or we have to replace the whole thing, whatever it is, whatever the corrective procedure that his engineers can work out has to be responded on the NCR. Once the corrective action proposal is given by the contractor, the consultant or the client has to check and approve the corrective action proposal. Especially in NCR, site observation, as I said, might be smaller, comparatively smaller issues. In such cases, a corrective action proposal may not be required. The contractor may just correct the observation and move on with it. Yeah, of course, he has to submit a closure request for the site observation saying that we have corrected the observation and we have done the rectification. We have avoided the non-compliance from happening, and that site observation can be closed. But for an NCR, since the non-compliance has occurred on site, it is a more detailed procedure. Once the corrective action proposal is accepted, the contractor goes ahead with the implementation of corrective action, or in case the corrective action proposal is rejected, the contractor has to revise the corrective action proposal with a better procedure, and basically they have to do it until the corrective action proposal is approved. Once the corrective action proposal is approved, the contractor proceeds with it, and then he submits a WIR for NCR closure. With this WIR, the consultant goes to the site, or the client representative goes to the site. He checks the work, he checks the non-compliance, and he makes sure that the corrective action has been carried out as per the approved corrective action procedure. And most of the times for these, like I said, for this example itself, the contractor, if the contractor is saying that he may add two more anchors to the system, to the bracket, and that will hold the installation in place without any problem, that has to be justified by the calculation as well. So when the client or the consultant goes for the inspection, he has to check that the current installation, the corrective action, is justified by documents and the work is done properly. Once the corrective action carried out on site is approved, NCR closure request can be submitted by the contractor, which will allow the consultant to close the NCR or the SOR. So that's how site observation, NCR, that is non-conformance, work inspection request, material inspection request. We also learned some few things about sample submittal or material submittal approval, ITP, that is inspection and test plan. So this is how the basic day-to-day quality control procedures are carried out on site. All of these points are very important and none of these points should be entirely skipped out. Of course, things can be worked around certain procedures. Like I said before, we can combine the couple of inspections or some inspections here and there to make the procedure easier and reduce the amount of paperwork that is required on the project. But in an entirety, none of this procedure should be missed out or skipped out. Yeah, I hope you got to learn something about it today, about the quality control procedure. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, if you learned something, please hit the like button and please add comments. Yeah? You guys are not asking me questions. I need questions for me to answer to you. Otherwise, how are we going to work out these videos, right? So please add your comments, ask your questions, tell me about your experiences. Yeah, that's it. So see you in the next video. Thank you.